All right, so we've been learning about the American Revolution. So today we're going to focus on the ladies of the American Revolution and the role that they played. So I found this really interesting article on time.com, and the title is Remembering the Ladies of the American Revolution. So if we scroll down a little bit, there's a picture of a lady, and we know that if we want to learn more about the picture, we should go ahead and read the caption. So the caption of this photo says Abigail Adams, 1744 to 1818. When I hear the name Abigail Adams, it sounds pretty familiar. We've learned a lot about John Adams, so I wonder if there's a connection there between the two. Let's keep reading to find out. On March 31st, 1776, as their crescendo of war drums sounded towards American independence, Abigail Adams wrote a letter to her husband, John Adams, so there's that connection, they're married, who was attending the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to finish work on the Declaration of Independence. So we know that that Declaration of Independence was an announcement saying, hey, we are independent from the British Empire. The letter said, I desire you would remember the ladies, she wrote. If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or representation. So what is she saying in that letter? Kind of think about that for a second. Yeah, she's saying, we have rights too, and we helped with this revolution, and we deserve some recognition. Adams' articulation on behalf of the ladies was indeed revolutionary and has become one of the most famous statements on behalf of early American women's rights. As writer Virginia Woolf observed in her book, A Room in One's Own, one significance of the end of the 18th century was that middle-class women began to write. Why would that be significant, that middle-class women began to write? Anybody have any ideas? Kind of think about that for a second. Yeah, it could be they're expressing their ideas and their opinions, and they're understanding that, hey, they have rights too. However, within an 18th century context, the ladies referred to an exclusive sorority of white elite female patriots, a concept that, much like the statements, all men are created equal and we the people, excluded much of the population of British North America. It's hard to fault Adams for advocating on behalf of the women of her own class, but women's experiences during the Revolutionary War era were far more diverse than is assumed. So this is kind of saying, we've heard the phrases, all men are created equal, and back then, were they really holding true to that? Because there was slavery and people were not being treated equal. So kind of the same when Abigail Adams says the ladies. People might assume it means everyone, but at that time, it really only meant a select group of ladies, the white elite class ladies. So it's leaving out a lot of people who had a great role in the revolution, and it's leaving them out, so that's not fair. For example, patriots from the English elite such as Abigail Adams and Esther Reed, author of the broadside The Sentiments of an American Woman, and groups such as the Daughters of Liberty, supported the cause for independence by raising funds for the Continental Army, organizing boycotts of British goods, and serving as spies and messengers. Other women such as Deborah Sampson Gannett disguised as men and enlisted in the war as soldiers. Why do you think they would have to dress up as men just to be soldiers in the war? Yeah, it could be because they weren't viewed as being strong enough or powerful enough to be in the war. So in order to help and do what they felt they needed to do to, help the war, they dressed up as men. So go ahead, think about that for a little bit and how powerful that is. All right, let me find my spot here. Meanwhile, thousands of women from lower classes encamped among the troops performing menial labor. And all along, as Anne Boleyn observed in her book, Women's Rights in the United States, women sought to change the definition of patriotism to include the right to speak and act on political issues. So, we hear about just a few women that helped with the revolution, but we must not forget that there was thousands of women of all different backgrounds and diversity and different classes that all came together to help. No task was too small. The political empowerment English women sought to obtain by law, Native American women enjoyed by custom. In patrilineal and matrilineal tribal societies, Native women were central to tribal politics. As Lisa L. Moore in Transatlantic Feminisms in the Age of Revolutions noted, to the Cherokee, a nation that did not honor and enfranchise its women was a disorderly nation, a dangerous nation, a nation capable of harm. So that's kind of interesting that, in the colonies, the women didn't have as many rights, and it was kind of the men that had the power over things, and they had the brains. But in the Native American culture, the women are really respected. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic to note. Mary Brant was the stepdaughter of Chief Brant Conagra and Dunca and the wife of Sir William Johnson, British Superintendent of Indian Affairs. She used her political influence in negotiations between her indigenous community and British colonial powers. Brant helped to secure an American defeat at the Battle of Oriskany, New York, on August 6, 1777, by passing on information to British Mohawk loyalists. Fearing retaliation from the Patriots, Brant and her family escaped to Canada, where she became a national heroine. By contrast, Nancy Ward was a beloved woman of the Cherokee Nation and supporter of the Patriot cause. During the 1780s, she and the Council of Cherokee Women pressed colonial administrators on 3 separate occasions regarding land and women's rights, which eroded with each treaty negotiation between Indian tribes and colonial governments. In a speech delivered in 1781, Nancy Ward chided the U.S. Treaty Commission, stating, women are always looked upon as nothing. Let your women hear our words." So again, women standing up during the revolution for what they believe in. And I like this article because we're getting different perspectives from different diverse backgrounds on the contributions that they had during the revolution. Poet Phyllis Wheatley, whose remarkable life as a former slave turned international literary sensation, challenged notions that the liberty trumpeted by the Patriots should not be extended to people of African descent, eloquently addressed the meaning of freedom in a poem to the Right Honorable William, Earl of Dartmouth, who supported the Patriot cause, as well as in a letter and poem addressed to His Excellency George Washington. Wheatley threw her full support behind the leader of the Continental Army. Numerous African American women served as spies and cross-dressed to serve as soldiers. So again, we heard that, women were dressing up as men just to serve in the war, and that's what some African American women were doing as well. And they bravely fought against the British, believing the promise that a Patriot win would mean liberation from slavery. So their motivation to be in the war was they wanted to be free from slavery. So they believed a win would help with that and grant them that freedom. That's what they were working for and hoping for. To the contrary, Elizabeth Freeman, known as Mum Betty, did not wait for the conclusion of the war to obtain her freedom. In 1781, 2 years before the American Revolution, or the American victory, Freeman filed suit in Massachusetts in Brom and Bett v. Ashley, arguing that slavery was inconsistent with the state's newly ratified constitution. The Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court agreed, and Freeman became the first black woman to successfully sue for her freedom in the Bay State. Her case implicitly ended slavery in Massachusetts. So Elizabeth Freeman paved the way. She said, "This isn't right. This is going against what you all say you believe in. So I'm going to fight for my rights." And she did, and she paved the way for those after her. The contribution of women to the American Revolution should not be an afterthought. As we celebrate the 240th birthday of the United States of America, let us remember all the ladies whose revolutionary deeds over the course of our history continues to edge us closer to the American ideals of liberty, justice, and equality for all. Go ahead and think, after we just read the article and learned a lot about different women and the roles that they played during the revolution, how do you think that they were working towards those ideals of liberty, justice, and equality for all? Can you think of any specific examples from the article of how they were working towards liberty and justice and equality? Yeah, those are some great examples. Women were standing up for what they believed were right. They were standing up for their freedom. So I hope you enjoyed our Think Aloud today and you learned a few things about women in the revolution and the roles that they played and how they fought for their rights.